Hi, everybody. Welcome to Life Stories Podcast, People Helping People. I'm Shara Goswick, your host. Today on the podcast, I chat with Alex Fink, who is the CEO of Otherweb. Otherweb is an online platform that aims to improve the quality of information people consume. We talked about how important it is to pay attention to what you are putting before your eyes and why scrolling is not great for you all the time. We talked about AI and the benefits and the scary parts of it. It was a great conversation, very informational. I encourage you to check out Otherweb after you listen to our conversation. Thanks for being here. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good. How are you?
Good. You work with something that we all are kind of dealing with all the time, but it's a little bit scary sometimes, a little bit unknown, talking about AI. And I know that you've done a lot of things, but you created Otherweb. So why did you do that? What was the purpose of Otherweb?
I mean, previously I was developing perception systems, cameras, computer vision, that sort of thing. And at some point I had this crisis of conscience, like the world doesn't need more cameras. Why am I doing this?
Right.
And so I wanted to solve a real problem. And to me, the biggest problem I see in the world is that people are just consuming nonsense all day, right? And when they consume nonsense, like even if their decision-making capacity is perfect, the decisions are going to be bad because they're based on nonsense. Right? And
Yeah.
so I wanted to address that because I don't want people to make bad decisions all around us. We're seeing where that
Yeah.
ends up leading us. So that was the general impetus to start looking at news. I was planning to go beyond news and not just stay in that one spot, but that one spot is such a big deal, such a big
It
market
is.
that there's a lot of
Yeah.
work to do there.
I am really guilty of scrolling through junk every day. I don't ever plan on it. And somehow I find myself way too much time in front of my phone looking at stuff that really, it just doesn't matter. I think it, I think there's probably a lot of things that we don't realize that's bad for us as we do that.
Right.
Excuse me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's pretty clear that the junk we get on our phones has evolved to be really addictive.
Yeah.
Right? Most of it is monetized through advertising. Advertising pays per
Right.
click or per view. There's no pay per
Yeah.
quality or pay per truth or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
And so you have this evolution of all the content on the internet becoming more clickable and more viewable over time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time, it's not random selection. It's not even just random junk that may or may not be true. It is being selected for being the thing that people are most likely to click on, which is more likely to be false because it was selected for a different trait, right? If you
Right.
select for one trait, you lose all the others over time. And so, yeah, I think clicking on the random stuff is really rewarding in the moment.
Yeah.
And then 2 hours later, you just ask yourself, what did I just do? And you can't
Yes.
even remember anything that you've consumed, probably, right?
Yes. Yes. It's a little embarrassing. So, how does Otherweb filter out the junk? How is it focused on what we need to be hearing and reading?
So we start by scraping news from all over the web, from 900 plus sources,
Oh,
left
wow.
and right, basically
Yeah,
trying to go as wide as we can
sure.
initially,
Yeah.
right? And then we try to rank content according to specific well-defined traits that everybody can pretty much agree on are bad, right?
Right.
Is this headline clickbait or not? Is this language misleading or not?
Yeah.
Is this article using one of these known propaganda techniques? And there are 19 that we can detect, right? And we're
Wow.
just basically ranking everything that we know to be bad. And then the final score of the article is 100 minus all the bad stuff we detected.
Yeah.
Now, it's also worth noting that you have a lot of your own customizations on the platform.
Hmm.
So you're not necessarily just consuming things in order of quality. You're consuming things in order of your preferences, in
Okay.
order of recency, in order of which topics you said interest you. In fact,
Yeah.
we even rank every article based on the emotions it's likely to evoke in you. And
Wow.
so you can set your feed to be slightly more hopeful, slightly less infuriating, or vice
Yeah.
versa, depending on what you prefer. Right? So we really want the user to be in control and we want to be as transparent as possible with how we rank stuff,
Yeah.
all the code of the models that actually do the ranking, the sources available, and the data sets that it was trained on are available. So
Yeah.
we wanted anybody who wants to dig in and see what we're actually doing to be able to do that.
That's great. That is fascinating to me. Is this something that you were always wanting to do as far as computers and technology? And that's just something you've always been interested in?
To some extent. So I would say that my father and my brother are much more techie than I ever was. And when I was a kid, I was probably more interested in economics and finance and stuff like that. But at some point when I was about to turn 18 and I had to figure out what to go study in college, my brother was already studying computer science,
Oh,
and I
wow.
already saw him begin to work as a software engineer basically since from year two. And I'm
Yeah.
thinking, okay, I could go and study economics for 6 years, and maybe then I will get an internship somewhere. Or
Yeah.
I can also go and study computer science, which I was already pretty good at. I was coding since I was in the fourth grade. And I can
Wow.
start earning a real salary from year two in college.
Yeah.
And then once I make some money, I can start a company and start doing the finance stuff that I like anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was my idea or if my brother implanted that in my head. I think that that's quite a viable possibility.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's almost accidental, but not quite, I would say.
Not quite. Well, you're obviously very good at it. So AI, let's talk about AI for a minute because I know it's something that people use more than they realize they probably use. Like I use ChatGPT a lot for just for a lot of different things. Sometimes it's a little creepy. Some of the responses that I get can be a little weird because it's supposed to be a computer and I feel like I'm talking to a person. But it can be powerful, it can be helpful, but it can also be kind of dangerous. Like, where's the balance in all of that, do you think?
Well, first of all, we have to start by saying that if you consume stuff through a feed, like you mentioned to me earlier
Right.
that you do, you've been using AI for many years before ChatGPT became a thing, right? That
Gotcha.
feed is already sorted by something that is essentially a type of artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
Like when we're talking about ChatGPT, that is a particular type of AI that suddenly made the headlines everywhere because it surprised us, right? It's the large language model, essentially.
Right.
Or, yeah, so that is one type of AI that has developed faster than others.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are some risks in that as it becomes better, it's probably going to affect how humans work in a really
Yeah.
significant way, right? Basically, anybody whose outputs is words or numbers is going to be affected in some way, and probably the effect is going to look a lot like what agriculture looks like in the 1920s, when in 1920 you had 30% of the population work in agriculture. By 1930, it was
Right.
3%. Right, so
Wow.
90% of people lost their job, but agriculture actually became more productive. Right now,
Yeah.
one person could cultivate 4,000 acres and not 30.
Yeah.
So the output has increased, the quality has increased. 90% of the people that worked in that profession had to find something else to do,
Yeah.
or in specifically the American context, they had to find a different place to be. That's why you had the great migration north from
Yeah.
those southern states, right? So we're going to see something similar, except this time it's journalists, it's software engineers, it's lawyers, it's
Mhm.
accountants, it's doctors, or at least those who do the diagnostic part of being a doctor as opposed to the
Right.
people facing part. Right. So that transition is going to be painful. I think we will be more productive and more effective at the end of it. But what is that period going to look like? I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm trying to make it smoother, at least in one profession,
Yeah.
but it's hard to tell because the people being displaced now have a lot more political power than the people
Right.
who were displaced in the 20s.
Yeah. Another area that kind of upsets me, and I understand how easy it is to make this switch, but is people like it creating photographs for you. I've seen like on LinkedIn how you can put in your picture and it can give you this great headshot from your photograph. And I just get bothered by that because I think, I have a woman that takes my pictures every couple of years for my headshots, and I spend a lot of money on that, and she makes money doing that as a career. And so I don't like that part of it. But
Yeah.
it's easy. I mean, it's an easy thing. It's can be fast. It can be very effective. So I understand. I just that's a hard thing.
Yeah, this is a criticism that Jaron Lanier had, and he was talking specifically about interpreters as one example,
Yeah.
where previously we had this profession called interpreter that
Yeah.
would actually translate text from one language to another.
Sure.
And now we have AI doing that. But the reason AI is so good at doing that is they got a lot of people to basically generate their data set for free. And
Oh,
then that the AI was trained on that data set and now it's really good at it. But people still did work, right?
yeah.
It was probably more work
Right.
if you add it up than all the interpreters did in their
Sure.
entire history of the human race, right?
Sure.
But that work was either unpaid or very low paid, right? Every
Right.
time you do a CAPTCHA, you're doing work to train somebody's AI model, but you're
Yeah.
not getting paid for that CAPTCHA, right? So there's just a displacement of effort and a displacement of profits in some way. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think photographs are similar. There is
Hmm.
another concern with photographs, which is just how easy it is to fake stuff now, right?
Yes.
And here it's a particular type of AI mechanism called the GAN, or the General Adversarial Network. But you basically create an editor and a critic, and then you iterate. The editor edits the photo, the critics finds everything that seems fake about it. And then
Right.
the editor edits again, and the critic critiques it again, right? And you
Yeah.
do multiple iterations until there is nothing to notice. And then even an expert will look at a photo and, well, nothing seems wrong with it. It seems real. And you basically can no longer detect that a photo is fake. And the
Yes.
same is going to be true of videos pretty soon.
Gosh, my son-in-law, he has his own business now. He does web security. And so I asked him one time, I had an interview, and a woman on the interview asked me how to pronounce my name. So I told her, and I asked him before I posted it, I said, should I not post that myself saying my own name online? And he said, your voice is all over the internet. It really doesn't matter at this point. I was like, oh,
I had this discussion with my parents about credit cards and using them online 20 years ago, where my father said, I'm afraid to to input my
right,
credit card here. What if it gets stolen? I told him, do you want me to find it for $2 somewhere on the
right.
dark web right now?
I know it's just kind of crazy that you can do stuff like that. It is wild. What are some misconceptions that people have about AI, do you think?
I think people both underestimate it and overestimate it at the same time,
Yeah.
right? So when people look at progress in things like writing, people underestimate the extent to which of how good it is because all they see is ChatGPT and other generic tools like this, right?
Right.
But ChatGPT is actually pretty terrible at writing. It writes like an undergrad trying to get an A and using words that are too big for the theme to
Right.
impress you, right?
Yeah.
Because it wasn't trained to be a good writer. It was trained to make the people scoring it happy. And the people scoring it
Gotcha.
were low wage people, I think in Kenya, students, things like that, right? So
Yeah.
it was just trying to impress them. And that's what it learned as good
Wow.
output, right? But if you train even a much smaller, much cheaper model on only Reuters articles,
Yeah.
it's going to write like Reuters. It's going to be
Huh.
really good. And so I think people underestimate how good it might be. At the same time, when people start talking about AI taking over because they watched Terminator movies
Right.
yesterday and they think Skynet's around the corner, right? We're actually pretty far from that. In fact, AI still can't open a doorknob that well, right? So some
Right.
tasks are much harder than people imagine,
Yeah.
and some tasks like writing well are much easier than people
Much
imagine.
easier.
I think my biggest concern with AI is just that people might do really stupid things with it, right?
Yeah.
Or really evil things with it. So we've
Right.
just developed a stronger tool than anything that existed before. And any tool can be used to do harm or to do good, right? A kitchen
That's
knife can be
true.
used to make a salad or to stab someone.
Yes.
So I'm not worried about AI deciding to take over and kill the human race. I'm worried
That's
about
good.
humans pressing the wrong buttons as they often do, but this
Right.
time the button's more powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that. Well, so I do use ChatGPT to help, like I said, with is there a different program that I could use that's better than ChatGPT to help? I don't want something to write everything for me. I just look for ideas and maybe to word something a little bit better than the way I can.
Well, first of all, ChatGPT has a few analogs, so you can try them out. But like
Okay.
Claude or like now there's a few Chinese competitors too that are decent. But what I mean is it's still a generic tool
Right.
that it's basically one tool meant to solve all the problems in the world.
Yeah.
Well, it's not going to be good at anything, right?
Yeah.
It's almost like if you take somebody who was really good at decathlon and you ask them to sprint, it's not going to be the best sprinter, right? And
Right.
occasionally it would jump for no reason. It's
Yeah.
which ChatGPT does quite a bit. So I think if you want the best sprinter, you just design the best sprinter. And
Yeah.
likewise, if you want the best writer for journalism, then you train a model just for that. Or
Yeah.
if you want a model that just does accounting, then you fine tune the model just for that. The generic stuff is always going to be pretty good, but you really have to test it.
Yeah. I guess I'll just stick with that. I mean, I really don't want anything writing everything for me because it does sound weird. Um, you can tell when somebody has used strictly ChatGPT and nothing has been
Yeah.
changed. It is a little odd.
But you could change the way you prompt it to minimize the chance of that happening, but you pretty
Okay.
much have to give it a list of what not to say and what not to do. And
Yeah.
even then, like you have to give it a list. Don't say delve because it does in every sentence. Right?
Right.
Don't say in the realm of in the beginning of paragraphs. Don't
Yeah.
start sentences with one word, comma. Right?
Yeah.
Like you give it a list of what not to do, and most of the time it would follow it. But still, yeah, it's you can't really teach it how to write
Yeah.
in a proper way just because that's not the feedback it was getting at the training stage.
Yeah. So what kind of feedback are you getting from Otherweb? Has it been pretty popular? And
I mean, we just crossed 18 million users,
I
so I
would say
think,
yes. That was pretty popular. That's pretty
yeah,
awesome.
it is pretty popular. Now, I don't know that we can become the next TikTok or anything like that, just in terms of magnitude, because we are not addictive,
Right.
right? And therefore, we are competing with a bit of a handicap against the guys who are trying to addict you.
Right.
We're just trying to be informative, and in
Sure.
fact, one of the feedback that users give us is that I feel informed without being agitated,
There you
right? Which
go.
means I achieved my goal, but it
Yes.
actually means that, if they miss a day, they don't feel the pain of missing a day like they do with
Right.
TikTok or Instagram.
Yeah.
So it is harder to retain users that way, even if they really like the service. But yeah, we're
That's
registered as a public
wonderful.
benefit corporation. So if we do a lot of good for 18 million people, that's
Yes.
already progress,
That's
even if
awesome.
they are not as addicted as they are to TikTok.
Yes. I haven't ever downloaded TikTok. I do not have TikTok, but I am on Instagram and Facebook way more than I need to be. When you're promoting stuff for a business, it's free. And so it's easy to do that. But then, you start scrolling and yeah, it's embarrassing. So what is up next for you? Do you have any new things that you're working on or
So there's quite a bit of stuff on the other web front.
okay.
We rolled out a tool for journalists called Press Hub, which basically helps journalists research topics that has a built-in newswire, kind of like AP or Reuters,
Mm-hmm.
that gives them ready-made articles that they can reuse under Creative Commons, and it
Yeah.
has a bunch of AI-based writing tools that help them write more efficiently. We've also rolled out a tool for companies that just need a corporate blog because one of my pet peeves is that most corporate blogs are just terrible. And so I thought, well, that's easy to improve, right? You don't even need to proofread. This AI can do better than what companies
Right.
typically do. And so we have a tool called Autoblogger that
Yeah.
basically does all of that, and it integrates directly to the corporate website and just posts directly on the blog. No editing, no manual, anything required. You give it the keywords, you tell it what you want it to write about, it creates a content plan in advance, and it starts posting according to that plan on schedule directly to our website.
Wow.
So there's a bunch of developments going on there.
Yeah.
On the other web itself, we're now mostly looking at audio as an interesting direction to pursue
Okay.
because some of the requests we were getting from users is, hey, this is great, but I want to get the news while I'm driving and I can't be clicking an app, right?
Oh, yeah.
And so we switched a lot to audio. We added the ability to save various articles and to listen to them as a playlist. And we're
That's
now
neat.
also thinking about the possibility of letting you essentially generate your own kind of news briefs that are perfectly tailored to the length of your commute or to the length of your workout. So you'll say, my
Wow.
commute is 14 minutes and it happens at 9 a.m. every day. Like,
Yeah.
why don't you have a news brief ready for me at 8:59 and please cover this particular topics that I really like? And it would create your
That's
14
cool.
minutes news brief for the length of your commute.
That's very cool. Very, very helpful. So, is there anything I haven't asked you about? I really am thankful to learn about Otherweb, and I did follow you, I think, on everything, and so I've kind of flipped through it. I haven't looked intently at it, but I've looked at it. Is there anything I haven't asked you about that you'd like to talk about?
Well, if you follow me on everything, you probably saw I'm involved in more than one thing. So
Yes, you were involved in several things.
if your listeners have one takeaway to take from this,
Yes,
it's please pay attention to what you put into your brain, right? It might
yes.
affect you just like the stuff you put in your mouth.
That is true. I totally agree with that. I totally agree with that. And I know it's not good at night. It's not good to be scrolling before you go to bed. You're supposed to be off your screens for like an hour and a half or something, which I don't always follow
Mm.
that rule, but it's not good for you. So I
Yeah.
totally
I
agree.
mean, I would just even say, okay, you want to scroll at night? If you planned it in advance, then okay, do it. But
Right.
if that wasn't your plan, why are you doing
Right.
it?
Exactly. It's a waste of time. It's terrible. It's terrible. Well, thank you. It has been wonderful talking to you today.
Likewise.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.